Welcome to another episode of Tomes and Tunes. This is episode 35, and I have as my guest this week Zachary Provost from Los Angeles. Well, actually, you know what? I don't know if he's from Los Angeles, but he lives here now, and I'm very excited to have him on. He and I played a gig together, I want to say about a year ago, at the Coffee Gallery backstage in Altadena. And he played a song that night, Walk That Road, that has been in my head ever since. I'm very excited to have him. And also, this is a really, I don't know, on my side, I feel like it's New Year's week. Yesterday was a great day. I was very excited to watch the inauguration, and so I'm in very high spirits, feeling good. And so, without ado, please say hello in the chat box if you are chiming in, and I'm going to bring Zachary in. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I am doing good, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm good. I gotta say, I haven't been in a classroom like the one you're sitting in a long time.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
So what is this tell us a little bit about that. This is a music room? Where are you?
This is a music room. Yep, I am in the music room of a school that I teach in the Pacific Palisades. It's a Catholic school, and I'm the music teacher, and I teach here 3 days a week. And so far, it's just been only me in this room since the beginning of the school year.
Peace.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And it's been, I miss the kiddos in here, of course. There's nothing like the personal interaction, but I have been sort of kind of getting into the groove of my little sort of classroom studio here, and there's some things that I find about online learning that are helpful for certain relationships, certain students, and being able to kind of get into the sort of learning psyche of some of these kids in a way that I hadn't been able to before, especially in a music class. I think they, when I get them in here as a big group, we're usually doing group stuff, and I'm getting kind of a general vibe from the group. And, the kids who make themselves known, I get a bigger impression from, but usually I'm getting a group vibe. And with the online stuff, because of the back and forth and the feedback going back and forth, I really get more of a sense of some of these kids, which I find exciting. And I'll be interested to see how much of this stuff carries over when we get back to on-site learning.
So you're teaching, the kids don't come into the classroom, but you are in the classroom. And how many kids are on the screen or, in a class session at one time?
It kind of varies, but the most I have in one class is about 25. It gets about as big as that, and some of the younger grades are more like, between 15 and 20. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm picturing, I went to this elementary school. Well, I went to I went to 3 different elementary schools, but one of them, the one that I remember the best, I had 2 different types of music classes. One was a chorus kind of class. We were singing. We were in a room with a piano, and the teacher had this, I just remember her hair. It was very big and very lacquered. But she, I mean, the songs that we learned at that age still stick with me to this day. I sing them. I remember them. I didn't know at the time that they were not quote unquote kids songs. They were kind of the American songbook. A lot of them. And we also learned a little bit of the beginnings of theory. And then my other music class was band class. I played clarinet, and we had the trombones and the drums and the whole bit. So you're not teaching the band. You're teaching that first version.
Yeah.
Right? Or
I'm kind of. It's sort of. I've never been a traditional band teacher as such, but I'm more kind of. They call it Orff training. So Karl Orff was a composer, educator from Germany in the 50s and 60s, and he and his wife devised this method of teaching music to kids that's sort of an all-immersive approach, where to really understand music, you have to feel it first, feel it in your body. So you're understanding rhythms from just like moving around, dancing, kind of appealing to a kid's natural sense and starting there, using that as a starting point, and then opening them up to the language and the world of music through that lens. Yeah.
Could you give us a little example? Would you be willing to do that?
Sure. Well, it's kind of like starting from, instead of going right into talking about, quarter notes and eighth notes and stuff like that, which for a little kid you can imagine just kind of goes right over their head. You're using nursery rhymes and just spoken language. So the rhythm and the music that can come out of a nursery rhyme, like deedle deedle dumpling, my son John went to bed with his stockings on. And you start using like the percussion that your body provides you. So patting and clapping, and you can move that around to different levels. Yeah. Deedle deedle dumpling, my son John went to bed with his stockings on. And then you take the language out and you just have the music, right? So that's one little example of just, and they're already on the schoolyard, most of them just going, I had a Triscuit, whatever they're doing, their rhymes and stuff like that. So they already have a musical sense. So it's kind of start using that as a starting point to like, okay, now what is that? And eventually you arrive at these are eighth notes and quarter notes and things like that.
So you start, your entry point is rhythm, not not melodic contour or not melody.
Yeah, well, and I do sing with them too. And the singing comes from, just depending on the age group, a different canon of like, folk songs. And this happens to be a Catholic school, so I'm also teaching the music of the liturgy. And a lot of these kids, usually when we're all in person during normal times, each grade is hosting their own mass here at the church. So except for, it starts with first grade through eighth grade, they each host their own mass. So I'm helping them get that together. And so we do a lot of singing.
You must have a background in Catholicism.
I do. I'm not Catholic myself, but I have worked as a musician in many a Catholic church over the years.
So you've just learned that over time.
Over time, yeah. Just I'm actually Jewish myself, but
yeah. Well, I was gonna say I'm Jewish. I don't think I could qualify, but that's really interesting. You're Jewish, okay?
Yeah, and that happens a lot. Actually, you'd be surprised. A lot of the musicians in churches nowadays come from all different faiths. It's interesting. But I won't say a lot, but I know my experience in Catholic churches anyway. Yeah, I've worked at a few, and that's never been an issue. So, and here I am here at this place. So, so that's part of the deal. So we are doing a lot of singing and working on just basic singing technique and breathing and articulating and things like that. And then there's a lot of group stuff that I do when they're here in person.
That breathing part, there's the STEM years in our education system, the what's the word I'm looking for, like the buoying up of STEM and the tamping down of the arts. Yeah. I feel like there's so much that music teaches, and the other arts as well, that is harder to quantify exactly, and breathing is one of those things, and yet such an essential, beautiful thing that just kind of happens, not so much always as the focus of the lesson, but just knowing how to breathe. I just thinking of my own education as a clarinet player and as a singer, just having that lifelong connection with being aware of my breath and conscious breathing, and now being a yoga teacher, but I really feel like it started in music as a child.
Yeah, that's true. It really is. It's such an essential part of it, and I don't teach traditional band instruments, but I am teaching recorder
Yay.
to 4 grades. So, and that is, it's like, breathing is so essential that you can't really make a proper tone on the recorder without breathing a certain way. So it's such an important part of that, even almost more than singing. They're focusing on their breath. That's a huge thing.
I didn't learn recorder when I was a kid, but I played it in college. I studied in part Renaissance music and
awesome.
played recorders in college. And absolutely, the breath is, absolutely the control of your breath so that you can do anything on that instrument. It's all the breath.
Yeah, and I find it interesting that the lower the notes you try to get, the lighter you have to breathe. Yeah. Almost. It's sort of it kind of works in a way you wouldn't imagine.
Yeah. I want to say hi to Shanti. I think you know her.
Oh yeah.
And I want to say hi to Charmin also.
Hey,
Charmin was a guest on the show a while back. She is an amazing songwriter.
Oh, sweet.
So yeah, she's on the East Coast. So okay, doodle doodle dumpling. I got that lesson. And so you were saying that there's some benefits actually to teaching online versus being in the classroom. And I can imagine the fidgetiness in a classroom.
Yes.
I wasn't a particularly fidgety student.
Nor
usually.
was I. Yeah.
But I remember those students. I remember those classmates.
They take a lot of time sometimes.
Yeah, so what is that all like on screen? You said that in a way it's a little bit easier to...
It is easier because...
25 students.
Yeah, but, it's the amazing power of muting. When I'm on Zoom, Zoom has its own built-in limitations that can be helpful because, we can't sing all together on Zoom without it glitching out. So they have to all be muted unless I'm unmuting them, and I have that control, which is nice. I don't have that control when they're here in person. Not really.
No,
so,
the kids don't have a mute button.
Yeah, exactly. So, so I like certain things about that. I like being able to get through a thought without the interruption. And it really becomes more on them to be available to what I'm giving them or not. I mean, I really don't have control, and if they want to turn their video off and go eat a sandwich or do whatever they want to do, they really can do that. I don't have control over what they're doing. I got to hand it to their parents. Their parents have really had to, figure out a way to keep working from home if that's what they're doing, and make sure that their kids are okay and set up for the online thing. And I'm a parent myself, so I understand how hard that can be to begin with, and then just on top, so I'm sensitive to what they're going through, and I'm sensitive to the kids too. I mean, I have a stepson who's in high school, and and my hat's off to him. He's just been doing so much, and it's got to be so crazy making to not have that social interaction, and have to learn in this kind of isolation. So, everybody's getting through it, and the teachers, the kids, the parents, everybody is just, my hat's off to everybody. It's such a, a challenge, but we're getting through.
I'm thinking about your students and that mute button, and how you can get a thought out, and there's how you said a lot of the responsibility is on their part, and I'm thinking also about, as musicians, as performers, the audience, and how even right here, I love when people chime in on the chat box. Note to any watchers, please say hi.
Chime on in.
But right now during this time of live streaming, a lot of our performances are to an invisible audience. Maybe we see the words or the reactions, but we're not getting that, the noise of the room, people moving around, people clapping, or tears or smiles, laughs, whatever that normal kind of feedback is. And same with students in the classroom, you're not getting that normal feedback I teach college level. Actually, most of the students are older than typical college age, and I am really appreciating some of the aspects of teaching online for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
But at the same time, there's this lack of feedback that I notice every quarter that I'm teaching. I'm like, ooh, especially
Yeah.
the students that I don't really know. I'm like, are they with me? What is happening?
Yeah.
You can't read their body language. You can't, feel it out.
Yeah, that's true. And that natural feedback that does happen within the moment is lost. But I think
Yeah.
what I find that is gained is really being able to compose my feedback to some of them for some of their work. And, I really wasn't doing that as much when they were coming into my classroom. And I'm really getting to look at each one of them a lot more because we can't really do group stuff. So they're sending me videos of them doing a recorder piece or even singing something. And I mean, I did this, it was crazy, but, virtual choirs, the whole thing with virtual choirs.
Yeah.
Everybody singing in their own frame.
Yeah.
We usually I'm the ringmaster of this Christmas program every December, and that's like every grade sings a song in church, and
Yeah.
we figure it out and we practice it and everything. Well, we actually did it virtually this year. I ended up making 11 virtual choir videos, one for each grade
awesome.
and a solo. And it was, I had never made anything like those before, so it was a lot of work. And without the help of my lovely wife, I don't think I would have actually made it.
Yay,
but
Shanti.
Shanti to the rescue. She helped out with some editing on some of them. But I mean, they each sent me a video of them singing. They're part of this collective song, and I'm getting to hear how their singing is sounding. I'm getting to, so I'm really getting to give them more specific feedback that I wouldn't be able to do if they were just all coming in as a group. It's hard to really pick all that out.
Now I'm thinking about my high school choir and how I was in two different high school choirs. One I sang soprano 2, and the other one I sang alto 1.
Yeah.
And it's one thing to sing the soprano 2 part. It's usually the melody. The alto parts are the harmonies, and maybe your kids are too young to be singing in harmonies, are they? And if so, how when you get those videos, are they learning to harmonize against another singer, or are they just learning their harmony line without hearing that counterpart or counterpoint?
That's a good question. I am especially since the virtual choir format was new for all of us, I was pretty safe and conservative about what I assigned them. So it was all pretty much unison stuff.
Okay.
But when they were coming here in person, you were mentioning a chorus, I did teach an extracurricular chorus class that had, by the time we finished up last year, it was about 16 students. And because they were just coming in here to sing and focus on that, that's where I did a little bit more multi-part singing because we had the time and the age range to focus on it. But just for the virtual choir stuff, I think it was challenging enough for them to just figure out when to come in,
Right.
learn the song, and sing along with. There was a guide piano track that they sang along with, and also a vocal track that they had to sing along with and blend with. So for a lot of them, just to be able to do that was kind of enough of a challenge. But I think the more comfortable we get in that, with the 8th graders at least, the oldest kids, I can begin to, try this lower harmony part if you'd like to, or try this part, or try this counterpart,
when these kids are all grown up,
Yeah.
I think we're going to they were already tech savvy before this happened, but, people talk a lot about, what are the developmental disadvantages to kids living through this time. But I wonder, what are the developmental advantages? What are they going to be creating when they're in their 20s and 30s and beyond because of this foundational, time of all technology, video, interaction? I think we're going to see we're seeing a tech boom right now just to kind of satisfy our basic needs of connection. But I think that maybe in 15, 20 years, we're going to see something really interesting coming out of the kids that were growing up during this time.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's kind of kicked it into high gear.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
No higher gear than this.
Yeah. I mean, I was blown away. I didn't know if the youngest kids would be able, I knew they would need their parents' help, but I wasn't sure they'd be able to do the virtual choir stuff. And they did. Most of them were able to do it with their parents' help. Yeah. And that's from a technological standpoint, I was blown away by that.
Yeah.
That they were able to figure out how to wear one headphone on and one off and sing along with something and be in the center of the frame, and it's just a lot to ask of young kids.
I love this. A lot of the conversations about kids right now have been really heart. I don't know if not all of them are heartbreaking, but heart bruising.
Sure.
But this is really heartwarming, actually, to just hear about this kind of. It sounds pretty successful. I know that you miss the kids, and it's like, but it's inspiring.
Oh, thank you. I think the challenge is, and it's a challenge when they're here in person too, the differentiation. Because, of course, there's kids with different learning styles, and there's kids who need more of certain things. And I think that's what we're finding with the distance learning is that, the kids who needed some extra help when they were here in person, when they're online, they almost need even more. Yeah. So I think I'm trying to remain open to whatever is needed of me and just communicate with the parents and some of the educational counselors that are brought in, and just see if we can do what we can do to help them have some kind of an experience that they can benefit from. But that's where the challenge is, I think, the kids who have extra needs being placed in this situation. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we're talking about kids, but collectively humans. And that's actually a good segue, because I know that you have something regarding humans to share today on Tomes and Tunes. For
Tomes and Tunes,
our book theme.
My tome.
Your tome.
It is technically, I think it qualifies because it's technically now a New York Times best-selling book, but originally it was a blog on the internet, and I think they had a Facebook page as well, but it's Humans of New York.
Yeah.
And I was actually, this particular story was, so these are stories from just the people of New York, the stories they have to tell. And this particular story was brought to my attention through my sister, actually, who had posted it. And I found it very inspiring. And I'm going to call it up here. So should I go ahead and read it? It's not too long. Should I just read the story?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. So this is what this young lady had to write about. I thought studying in the U.S. would be easy. I'd attended a UN conference in high school, so I already had a visa. I begged my father to let me go. He finally agreed and took out a loan to buy me a plane ticket. I arrived with $150 in my pocket and stayed with a Gambian family in Maryland. For 2 months, I visited schools asking for financial aid, but nothing was available for people like me. I began to accept the reality that I would need to go back home. There was one last school called Montgomery College. It was a 5-minute bus ride from where I was staying. And when I visited the campus, I learned about a scholarship for international students. But the deadline was approaching, and I would need to submit my application that day. I searched everywhere for a computer. I walked through the hallways looking for any door that was open. And that's how I discovered Professor Rudin. She was sitting at her desk. She had currency from all over the world hanging on her wall. I noticed a bill from Gambia, and that's how we started talking. I stayed for 2 hours. I told her my entire story, and by the end, we were crying and hugging each other. Kelly researched the scholarship and learned it wouldn't work out. But that night she spoke to her husband Tom, and they decided to pay for my school fees. They gave me money for food and clothes. Kelly drove me to Best Buy and got me a phone, and then added me to their family plan. I'm still on that plan today. For 2 years, I lived with the Rudins. Every morning, Kelly made me breakfast, and we drove to school together. She and Tom became like my parents, and her children became like siblings. They hung pictures of me around the house. They helped with my entire education. When I graduated from Georgetown, they even paid for my father to attend the ceremony. He was so overwhelmed when he arrived. He gave Tom the biggest hug. It was such an emotional moment for me. I thought about how it all started, begging my dad to let me come to America. And here I was, 4 years later, graduating from Georgetown. My father was with me, and he was thanking the 2 human beings who took me in and called me their daughter. Mm. Yeah, so it was hard not to be inspired by a story like that.
Which part struck you when you first read that?
Well, first what really spoke to me was just the determination and the perseverance of this person. It just must have felt like such a huge thing to embark on, and she just seemed, this part of her that just seemed kind of fearless about it. I'm sure she wasn't, but what is sort of the outward appearance of it was pretty brave, and then the fact that she just went for it, and then I think discovering this friend who ended up having this really important connection with her, and changing her life, but recognizing, I think, the professor recognizing where this person was headed, and wanting to honor it and having the ability to support it, and it's just a beautiful thing to see, and such an antidote to the times, because this is when we were dealing with a lot of the unrest uprising from the killing of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and just all these stories, and these stories of just communication breakdowns and tragedies and just unjust, unfair behavior. And hearing a story like this come through all that, where 2 human beings are connecting on such a deep level, it just offered this kind of hope that really was, I think the reason my sister linked to it is that gave her a lot of hope, and then I found it so hopeful and inspiring, and it ultimately inspired a piece of music. But that's really what grabbed me about it, was just her perseverance, and then the professor's ability to recognize that, and the bravery of her to ask for something, just ask for help, and then just the understanding that the professor had about what situation she was in, and just a beautiful connection that they were able to make.
Yeah.
And ultimately the whole family. So, yeah.
I keep thinking as you're talking about the idea of trust and faith, and how related those 2 ideas are to generosity. The idea of generosity without expectation, just having, like, just trusting that the part about generosity, the being generous part, I don't know, just without any expectation about how that might play out over time,
Yeah.
et cetera, like without scrolling forward to the future and but just seeing a person in need with a deep desire for a dream and who is doing their part, showing up as best as they can, and then being in a position to help them with the next step where they wouldn't be able to get beyond where they are, and just having faith in this person, the stranger, having faith in a stranger, trusting a stranger that the story that they're telling you they want to study in the United States, just trusting that story is true.
Yeah.
That they know themselves well enough that this is an important thing for them, and to kind of recognize that in them and show up in a way that can help them.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's a very moving story.
I think so. That she must have seen something in her. I would wonder that. I would wonder if she saw something in her beyond just what the things she was saying or asking. If there was something in her body language or something that just created that heart connection. And I just sort of like the discovery. I like how she writes about it, the discovery of it. Oh, the currency from her country on this woman's wall.
Yeah.
Just like these little clues along the way, almost.
She picked up on the fact that this woman has an interest in other people, other cultures, has a curiosity, and probably an academic investment, an academic passion for it.
And looking through a wider lens, so to speak.
I'm tempted, usually on this show, I ask my guests to share a piece, and then I share a piece, and then we do the song swap afterwards, but I know that your song is related to this piece, so I wonder, would you be willing to play it?
Sure, of course. So this is a song that I typically, I wrote it with Shanti, and we sing it together, but I'm going to be singing it, thinking of you, dear, while I sing it on my own. Let's see. My keyboard turned off in the time that we were. Here we are. Okay. So this is the solo version of a song called Take Me In, inspired by this story. There was ever something in my way, wasn't gonna let it stop me, no. Every time I felt the door close, wouldn't let it break me in my heart. Turns out all I needed was to speak my mind to a soul who would listen. I could never have imagined you'd take me. Your bravery, I saw your shine, doesn't seem to stop you, just drives you on. All you're up against, you're still going strong to the rightful promise your dream has in store. Your strength inspires me to open the door. Help you open the door. There was ever something my way, wasn't gonna let it stop me. Every time I felt the door close, wouldn't let it break me in my heart. Turns out all I needed was to speak my mind to a soul who would listen. I could never have imagined you'd take me in. Oh, I know I've come a long, long way, and I know I have a long, long way. Oh, I see you going a long, long way. If there was ever something my way, wasn't gonna let it stop me. Every time I felt the door close, wouldn't let it break me in my heart. Turns out all I needed was to speak my mind to a soul who would listen. I could never have imagined. I could never have imagined. I could never have imagined you'd take me in. Take me in. I could never have imagined.
Oh, I can really hear, I think, why you do this as a duet, because you go
Yeah.
back and forth between the two characters.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you and Shanti take the two different roles?
Yeah, Shanti does the verses there, and I come in with the if there was ever something in my way part,
Yeah.
of course. But yeah,
Beautiful. Lovely song. And I love hearing the background of it. I'm very, very, it just, it just kind of filled, I guess I had the story in my mind as you were singing the song, and I could imagine,
yeah,
I was just seeing the two characters in like a doorway, basically.
Yeah.
One person on one side and the other on the other.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that too.
Have you recorded that song?
We're putting finishing touches on it right now. Yeah, we have most of it in the can, and I think we just need a good mix, maybe a couple overdubs and a mix, and we're there. Yeah, almost there.
I forget what the Honey photographer's name is. Brandon something, right?
Oh yeah, there's some great pictures. Yeah.
His
Yeah.
no, but I mean the guy, like he does the pictures and he puts the stories together. What is his name? Do you know offhand or? Brandon, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right.
You should send them this song when it's done.
That's a good idea. Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. I would love to do that. It's such a wonderful idea, and I wonder if it says here. This is the story. Probably on the Humans of New York page. I don't know. I'm looking for his name, but it doesn't say. Oh, maybe on the website. Yeah.
We'll all. I'm sure that whoever's watching right now is looking up. I think it's. Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
By the way, I just want to say hi to Susie. Nice to have you. Joseph, I see you as well. Thanks for being here. Lovely to see you guys.
Hey.
Shanti, what did you think of that song as a solo version? You two, let me see if I can pull it up again. I just did it.
Yeah.
So Zachary, you and Shanti do this duet or this like
Yeah.
show. Do you sing? You do everything as a duet on this show every
On
Tuesday?
yeah, on for Tuesday songs. Yeah, every Tuesday at 8 Pacific, we do. They're mostly duets. Sometimes Shanti takes the lead. Sometimes I do. So it's kind of a mixed bag, and we mix it up with covers and originals. And oh, thank you, dear. Saw her comment. And yeah, we've been having a great time with it. And we try to take people's requests too, because we feel like that's a good way to learn new stuff. So we try to work in at least 1 or 2 requests each week. Yeah.
Nice work, honey. Love it. Just gotta share that one.
There you go. Yeah.
Love that.
Go home and give her a big hug. Yeah. She's been wonderful to write with, and we've been having a good time as collaborators in that way too. And we are recently married. We were married during the pandemic.
You had a COVID wedding.
We had a COVID wedding, online wedding, September 23rd of last year, and then we did just a small in-person event for just close family in October. So thank you.
So you mentioned that your stepdad.
Yes. Shanti's son's name is Vinny.
Okay, and he's in high school. And are you a biological dad as well?
I am. Yep. My son Avery relatively recently moved to Buffalo, New York. That's where his mom now lives.
Oh, wow.
So I see him when he's able to come over here, and because of the pandemic, that's been tough. So I haven't seen him in quite some time, but we communicate regularly.
Yeah. You know, I've heard from a lot of parents, even when their kid is just on the other side of town, this is a really, you know, it's a tough time for people to see each other. I found myself, once the shutdown happened last spring, I found myself thinking, you know, if we had had warning, I guess, you know, where would I have gone? Who would I have visited? Who would I have hugged? You know, all that stuff. But I feel like there's hope on the horizon.
Too.
So,
me too, indeed.
I have I'm working on this book right now. I'm very happy to say that I'm actually after. I absolutely love the language. I've really enjoyed the book, but other things have disrupted my reading over the last couple of years of it. Sure. And I am finally now almost completed with When Women Were Birds by Terry Tempest Williams. This is not visible in the light, I know, but you know, the visual proof anyway. The subtitle is 54 Variations on Voice. And I talked about this book last week. It's kind of a braided, a lot of braided ideas, and the through thread is the writer Terry Tempest Williams, and everything is through her lens. But the sort of jumping off point was that her mother, when her mother was dying, said to her, "I'm leaving you all my journals," and she was surprised that her mother had even kept journals. She hadn't known about that. And so when her, a little while after her mom died, she went to the place where her mom said the journals were, and she found them all. They were 54. Her mother had been 54 years old when she died, and there were 54 journals on the shelf. And she pulled the first one off of the shelf, and it was blank. And she pulled the next one off of the shelf, and it was blank. And every journal was completely blank, nothing written on them. And it disturbed her, it moved her, it made her curious, and it inspired, this exploration on voice. And one of the common threads is birds and bird song. But this little piece is about silence. And so I'll just read this little bit. I fear silence because it leads me to myself, a self I may not wish to confront. It asks that I listen. And in listening, I am taken to an unknown place. Silence leaves me alone in a place of feeling. It is not necessarily a place of comfort. The Roman goddess of silence, Angerona, held her finger to her lips as she stood in the posture of both pain and peace. My mother knew herself, and she kept her silence as a possession. It was hers alone. She didn't have to write about it. I do. On Friday, August 29th, 1952, a pianist named David Tudor stepped onto the stage at the Maverick Concert Hall in Woodstock, New York. He sat down on the piano bench, closed the black lid over the ivory keys, and clicked a stopwatch he held in his hand. During this time, he was turning the pages of a silent score. He stood twice to open and close the piano lid between movements. After 4 minutes and 33 seconds, the pianist stood up to receive applause. The audience was stunned. This was John Cage's masterpiece. What they thought was silence, because they didn't know how to listen, was full of accidental sounds. John Cage remembered that premiere performance in the Catskills, now known as 4 minutes 33 seconds. You could hear the wind stirring outside during the first movement. During the second, raindrops began pattering the roof. And during the third, the people themselves made all kinds of interesting sounds as they talked or walked out. Silence, introduced in a society that worships noise, is like the moon exposing the night. Behind darkness is our fear. Within silence, our voice dwells. What is required from both is that we be still. We focus, we listen, we see and we hear. The unexpected emerges. John Cage sees the act of listening as the act of creation. It is not a question of having something to say, he would answer in a fictional dialogue between an uncompromising teacher and an unenlightened student. Relevant action is theatrical. 4 minutes 33 seconds was theatrical. My mother's journals are theatrical.
I love that. Yeah.
I've been thinking about silence in a different way in terms of a performer with this new way of performing in live streaming, and the silence, or the listening of the room. I was rehearsing earlier today for something, and realizing that the rehearsal and the performance are both going to be from this room. Everything is exactly the same, and there will be, no additional noises except perhaps a lawnmower from the neighbors, or,
right.
The squirrels running across the roof or something like that. Yeah. I want to read what Joseph says here. He says, beautiful poem. I have an entire journal I wrote with invisible ink. I wonder what someone will think if they find it. Joseph is a musician also. He's a multi-instrumentalist, woodwind player.
Nice.
And Joseph, that is very interesting. Do you still have that journal? And do you remember what you wrote?
Yeah. That's a good question. Yeah. I think it's a brilliant idea John Cage had there.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have been there for that performance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder how many, a lot of times when, I notice even in myself, a lot of times when I'm silent, I am not listening. Like, there's like thundering. I'm actually writing a song about this idea right now, but this thundering battle happening inside my head.
Yeah.
And then, at some point I kind of awaken out of that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, let me listen to the world, like quiet those thoughts that are like kettle drums, boom, boom, boom,
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Sometimes I'm standing in the shower and, I step out of the shower and I'm just like, wow, like I have just been in a screaming argument with someone, or, and,
totally,
I step out of the shower and all of a sudden the shower water is silent and I'm just standing there dripping and
Yeah.
suddenly hearing the quiet of the room.
Yeah. It's a gift when it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When the mind
Yeah.
silences.
It really is. I remember a moment when we were hiking. I call it the Capri hike, but it's in the Palisades, and it was my wife and I, and we got down toward the bottom of this path, and I just wanted to stop and listen. I just felt compelled to just stop and listen. And she joined me, and it really just was a pretty blissful 2 or 3 minutes that we just stood there.
Yeah.
And, I like being able to hear what's happening, all the stuff that opens up, wind rustling through the trees,
Yeah.
distant hikers' voices, things like that. Just it's its own little symphony, which is cool. And I haven't done so much of it since we've been online, but I've had lots of experiences with students where I'm trying to get them to just close their eyes and listen.
Yeah.
Because they're getting so much input from so many places, and it's
I think
important.
it's like, everybody who's listening, all of us, both of us and everybody, like, just close our eyes and like, what do we hear right now,
Oh yeah. Mm. Yeah. It's worth doing.
I remember when I was I can't remember when I started doing this, but I distinctly remember doing it in 12th grade on New Year's Eve, and just sitting in the room where I was. There was candlelight, and thinking of, like, how can I press this into the scrapbook of my mind? Like, can I take in all of the sensory experience right here, quiet my mind so I'm not remembering my thoughts, but I'm just remembering the look of the room, the feel, the smells, like everything. I want to remember this moment, and just pressing flowers, flower petals between pages of a book or something like that, just trying to capture that. And I don't know when I started doing that. I distinctly remember I did it then, but I've done it many times since, and it's almost like just like when you press flower petals and you're getting rid of the moisture, or whatever, you're drying them. It's like trying to squeeze out my thoughts, just take in the essence of the moment without the contamination, I guess.
Yeah.
That other piece.
Yeah. It's a challenge.
So, do you have time for one more song before you get for me to play a song before you get to back to your class?
Oh, I got all the time in the world.
You got it? Okay.
Teaching's done for the day, so I'd love to hear what you got.
All right, I'll play a song, and then we'll take it out, and that'll be it. Let me just actually, before I do this, I'll do this one more time before we go, but just remind people about your show on Tuesday on Instagram, my friends. So that's Zach and Shanti Piper. Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Pacific, other way, 11 p.m. Eastern, right?
Yes.
No, is that right?
Yep.
Am I doing that math?
You are correct.
Okay. Well, your Honey share about the student who had a dream. This is sort of later on in life. This is a song about that other time in life, perhaps when you have lived a bit, and you're kind of remembering the dreams that you had that you didn't get to. Let me just there we go. And I'm gonna actually go ahead and you can make any kind of noises you want, because I'm gonna mute your mic right now.
All right.
All right, here we go. This is someone else's dream. weren't the woman that you wanted to be, you'll be knee-deep in dirt, combing layers of earth. You'll be digging down through the centuries, making stories out of broken pottery. But you settled down and married young, and now you're looking in the mirror at the woman you've become. What do you do with someone else's dream, or someone else's life, or someone's hurt, back in someone else's dream? If you were the woman that you wanted to be, you'll be skidding out the lane before the screen door hits the frame. You'll be steering straight to land you never knew, buried temples and gods shaking off your facade. But what kind of woman breaks a decent home? And how do you know if you can make it on your own? What do you do with someone else's dream, or someone else's life, or someone's heart? And what can you say when you are caught between who you are and who you thought you would be? Why do you shove the pieces of yourself under the rug? And what do you do with someone else's dream, or someone else's life, someone's heart? What can you say when you are caught between who you are and who you thought you would be, back in someone else's dream? Or someone else's dream. Back in someone else's dream.
I love that. Yeah,
Thank
great
you.
hook.
Thank
Yeah.
you. So it's a new year, time for new dreams. I hope that this is kind of a time, I think, when, for me anyway, I kind of think forward to next year, turning into 2022. How do I want to be different than I am at this point this year? So I love that idea of dreams, and kind of reflecting back on the paths not taken or taken, and looking forward, the paths that I hope to take. So
Here.
yeah.
Yeah.
Zachary, thank you so much for being here today.
It's been just an honor and a privilege. Thank you so much for having me. This is a beautiful thing you got going.
Thank you.
And,
It's been
a pleasure
really
to be a
fun.
part of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's been really nice to connect with other songwriters and all that stuff during the separation that we've all had to
Yeah.
have.
We need it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put your thing one more for everybody who wants to
Thank you.
hear Zach on Tuesday singing
Yeah.
in duets with his new wife Shanti.
Yeah.
Go visit them on Instagram.
Yeah, she'll do some
Yeah.
solo stuff too. Come join
Very
us.
cool.
It's fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you all for being here. It is such a pleasure to do this every week. And, it just started as a whim, and it has been just really fun, and it just kind of kept going, and now it's going and going. We have next week, my guest is Cynthia Brando, and we got stuff booked up far in the future, so I hope that you will join me next week, same time, same place. And meanwhile, actually also on Monday, this coming Monday, January 25th, come say happy birthday to me, and come to my show. I'm playing as part of Road Nation's Roadless live stream series on Twitch. It's early in the day. My set is at 1:20 p.m. Pacific, so that's 4:20 p.m. Eastern on Monday. And actually, I'm the last to play that day. There are a bunch of people, including one of the founding members of Twisted Sister. So the show actually starts pretty early. And if you tune into that URL right there, Twitch TV, Road Nation Official, you can catch the whole show and just have a whole Music Monday. Why not? Let's just make this whole year about music. So I would love to see you. There's some cool experience merchandise that they have set up. I can do like a personalized happy birthday, for example. We can do a virtual coffee or some other things that they got set up, plus hoodies and mugs and albums and the usual merch, fun stuff. So I hope to see you on Monday for that show, and you can always find me, of course, here, and this link also has the show on Monday. Meanwhile, I will see you next week. Find Zachary Provost wherever you listen to music. Beautiful songwriter. And let's see here. I think that's all we got for today. So until we see each other next time, please be safe. Take good care. So great to see you. Bye.